Have you ever wanted to paint on a rock, but the surface was just too rough and you could not create nice round dots? Stay tuned to find out how you can make a nice smooth surface on just about any stone to make those nice round dots. Hi everybody, this is Mark from Mark's Mandalas, and in this video I'm going to show you a couple different ways that you can use resin to smooth rocks before painting them. I'm going to give you some information that I found out through my trial and error. Something I found out is you do not want to paint your rocks, either spray paint or any kind of paint on there if you're going to put resin on them to smooth them. I have an example here I found out the hard way. Hopefully that this will come out where you can see it's kind of blotchy, and the best analogy I can think of, it's almost like a car that you just waxed and it rains, where the water beads up, and the paint on the rock is kind of like the wax on the car, and the resin is like the rain. So if you're going to be putting resin on your rock to smooth it, I recommend you do not paint the rock. Instead, you want to tint the resin itself, and I've already done that. I'm going to tint this black. I got to pause the video for just a moment here because I have some breaking news. I had just mentioned about how you do not want to spray paint or paint the rock before you put the resin on there, but you can paint it or spray paint it after you put the smoothing coat on. And for lighter colors, it might be recommended. I don't have a lot of experience tinting resin. I know the black works very well. It did a great job of making this rock very dark, but I tried it with some white and I didn't have very good success. You can see how transparent it is and it didn't get very coverage. So I'm going to spray paint these two rocks white. And I'm even going to go ahead and spray paint this one flat black. And I'm going to go ahead and be back in just a moment just to show you the results. Okay, I am back from getting them spray painted, and here are the results. And the reason I painted this one a flat black is on my videos that I do where I'm painting on camera, the glossy finish reflects really badly and it's hard to get a good image on camera. So that's why I painted this flat black. As far as just painting, where you're not recording it for others to watch, the gloss finish should be just fine. If you find the reflection is an issue, then here's a solution as far as using the flat finish. And flat paint, the less sheen a paint has, the more adhesion it has to other paint. And it doesn't matter if this is gloss or flat right now. It only depends on what your final finish is going to be over the top. That's the sheen the whole piece will take on. So if you're going to put a gloss clear coat or resin over the top of your piece, it's going to have a gloss finish. So don't worry about this being flat now, because if you're going to put a gloss on it at the end, it'll have a gloss finish. And as you can see in the white pieces, there's much better coverage. Turn it over here and you can see here's what it was before, and now here it is afterwards. So I hope that this helps you out as far as adding color. If you don't want to tint the resin, then you have another option, and it gives you a lot of versatility as far as colors that you can use. So let's go ahead and get back to the video that was already in progress. You can tint it with other colors, but for this example I'm going to be using black. And I have another thing I'm going to be showing you at the end of this video, so you definitely want to stick around and watch the end. I initially have been setting my rocks on silicone mats, and it would make kind of a flat area of resin on the bottom, which was fine most of the time. But if you get a large one of these, it sticks out a little bit, it's a little sharp, it's hard to remove, and so I went ahead and found an easy way to make I guess you could call it a bed of nails, even though it's push pins. And I'm going to show you at the end how I make these things really quick and really easy. So I'm going to go ahead and in fact, I'm going to move this one out of the way. I'm going to show you the two different methods that you can do. The first one I've already done a video on, and it is pretty much using a brush where you brush it on. There's pros and cons to both methods I'm going to show you. The pro to this method is that it's neat and tidy, and it's not very messy. The con is that you have to kind of maneuver the rock around, walk around the rock, or maneuver yourself to make sure that you get everything around the edges. So there's the possibility that you might miss a spot. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to I'm going to start brushing this on here. And I'm going to go ahead and speed this part up a little bit because this takes a little bit of time. I don't think you want to watch me paint this resin on here in real time, so I'll be right back. Okay, I've got that one done now. It's all been brushed on, and probably can't see it in the because they're so small, but I can see the little air bubbles that are on the top, and they're off-gassing right now. So I don't think I'm going to have to worry about trying to spray any acetone on there. I'll keep an eye on it though, just to make sure. Now this next method, I'm not going to need the brush. I'm going to go ahead and put that aside. Now this other approach is the first way I've seen people do it, but it's, the con to this is it's messy, and I don't know if you've seen or if you noticed that while I've been brushing that on, I have rubber gloves on my hands. I always use rubber gloves whenever I'm working with resin, so I highly recommend using rubber gloves when you're working with resin. And this method here is definitely messier than the brush-on method, but the good part about it is it's much faster, and you have an easier time making sure you get full coverage on this. And the method that I'm talking about is just to pour some resin on here, a little bit on here, and rub it on with your gloved hands. And so you can definitely make sure you see everything, you cover everything. But like I said, you're going to get resin all over your hands. So I'm going to go ahead and do this real quick. This won't take very long. I won't have to speed this up at all. I'm going to change the gloves that I have on because they're going to get messy, put on a new pair, and I'm going to show you how I make these little bed of nails to keep these rocks elevated, and the bottom is a lot easier to deal with, I think, after comparing the two. So here we go. I guess I can move that out of the way for right now. Put just a little bit on there. And here we go. Make a mess, but it's really quick. You can see how much faster you get coverage. And even though this is going to be the bottom of the rock, it's so quick and easy. I just want to get coverage on the whole thing. And you can easily look around to see, it's like, oh, there's a little spot right there. Not anymore. Okay, so now it's a little messy here still. That's just a quick little get it started. And I'm going to go ahead and put this over here now. And I'm going to set this on here. Now I'm going to sort of finesse this a little bit more. This is self-leveling resin, but I still like to give it as much help as I possibly can. And just a little bit more over here. All right, there's the second one. You can see my hands are now all covered in resin, well, the gloves are anyway. I'm gonna go change the gloves, and I'll be right back, and I'm gonna show you how to make those little bed of nails, as I like to call them. Okay, let's see, I got new gloves on, no resin on them, and let me go ahead and show you. Well, I'll end up getting some resin on them too before this is over, I'm sure. So, I initially would just put these push pins in the silicone molds, but then I found an easier way to do this, and that is just to go ahead and pour just a little bit of resin in here, just enough to, I should be able to do a couple of these, I'm thinking. Because when I put the push pins in there first, I couldn't do this, and then I also had to avoid pouring resin on them when I was pouring in the base here. So now I have that fully covered. I'm going to put just a little bit more in there, and I'm going to do the same thing over here. Let's see if that's enough. So you don't need very much, and it's just it's also a good way just to use some leftover resin. Okay, and we got both of those covered. And now I like to put 9 in there, kind of 3 rows of 3. Just go ahead and you can move them around once you get them in here. And if one falls over, it might be a little bit messy, but you can just reach in there and pull it out of there and set it back up again. And what's also nice about these is you don't have to worry about covering them up. You don't have to worry about air bubbles. You're just making a tool to rest your pieces on that you poured resin on, so you don't get a big pool of dried resin on the bottom of the piece that you're putting resin on. Get a couple more in here. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Oops, and in fact, here's an opportunity just to show you. I don't know if you could see that, but I just reach right in there, and this hand is clean, so I can go ahead and zoom in a little bit, and it's not real pretty looking, but and the black on black makes it kind of hard to see, but hopefully you can see the push pins in there, and then when that cures, I'll be pulling that out and you'll be able to see just what it looks like. Let me go ahead and do this other one real fast. I'll speed this up for you. So I'll be right back. Okay, I got those all sitting there, and now I think we're good to go. I'm going to cover up the rocks and let that sit there, and I'll see you here in a little while. Okay, it's only been about 16 hours or so, and you generally want to let resin cure for about 24 hours. But I'm going to go ahead and pull these out now. They're going to be a little bit pliable, but that's okay. Sometimes I can make them easier to remove. Let me go ahead and pop these out of here. And yep, they are a little bit pliable still, as you can see. That's okay though, because there's this. You can just, if you want to, you can put a rock on them and rest them down, or you can just press it down flat, and when it fully cures, it'll be just fine. And these don't have to be perfect anyways. So there's one. Let's go ahead and pull the other one out here. Then we're gonna take a look at the rocks and see how they look after they've had a chance to cure. And it's gonna be, I can see, I mean, I can still bend this right now because it hasn't been long enough for it to fully cure, but it's, I wore gloves just in case, but there's nothing coming off on these whatsoever. They're totally fine. So let me get that out of the way. Now let's move over to the rocks. Okay, and as you can see, I've covered these up. Now after the video, after I ended the video yesterday, it had been about 5 to 10 minutes since I had covered the rocks with resin, and there were still some air bubbles. So I went ahead and sprayed them with some acetone. I just used this little spray bottle right here, a couple squirts on each one, took care of the air bubbles, and that was pretty much it. And here they are, and I'm going to go ahead and give you a comparison of one that I spray painted before I covered with resin. And I'm kind of bouncing around here as far as information. As far as this goes, this is not fully cured yet either. But one of the benefits of that, you want to be careful about trying not to touch too much of the top. But it might be a little bit easier to pull this little bed of thumbtacks out of here. And so I'll put that aside. And as you can see on the bottom, this is the one that was rubbed on. I just rubbed on the resin with my hand. And here's more of a close-up comparing to show that, yeah, you just want to go ahead and not paint the rock prior to putting resin on there. It's nice and smooth. This is not so smooth. I'm going to try to work on a way to try to fix this a little bit. Maybe another coat of resin on there might help it out. Anyway, there is, I'm going to go ahead and set this down here. Even though it's not fully cured, it's not going to hurt sitting on the bottom. If it flattens out a little bit, it's just some little tiny nubs that are on there. And let's go ahead and pull this one off of here. As you can see, that's what it looks like on that bed of thumbtacks. And you just kind of work it. Oops, and a thumbtack just broke off. The plastic base broke off. So now I only have 8 thumbtacks, but I think it's still going to be usable. And these are very inexpensive to make. So, and as you can see, this one that I brushed on, there's some of the stones still exposed on the bottom, or the one that I rubbed on, it's pretty much all covered. You can see some areas where it's a little bit translucent, but that's just the difference in coverage on the bottom. You could brush the bottom of the rock first before brushing the top. So that's when we can fix that if you wanted to. I wanted to, one more time, actually show you, I have to edit this into to this recording, but the difference in if you just apply the resin and set it onto a silicone mat directly versus putting it on one of these little bed of thumbtacks or push pins or whatever you want to use. And you can see on the bottom here, this looks pretty benign, but until you start getting closer, it's a fairly jagged edge along here. And until I was getting smaller versions of these that weren't like this, and once I got something larger like this and found out that it's really difficult to remove this once it's fully cured, that's when I decided to go ahead and reinvestigate something along the lines of this. So anyways, I wanted to show that in addition to just the difference between a brushed on and a hand rubbed on version of resin, and you can make the choice of which one appeals to you more. I think they both work great, so it's just up to your preference. I'm going to go ahead and set this here. I'm not going to worry about trying to cover these up now because they're set up enough where I'm not worried about anything landing on them and being a problem. But I'm going to, before I paint them, I'm going to let them go ahead and sit for probably another day. And I hope this information has been helpful, and I look forward to making more of these tutorials for you. This is Mark from Mark's Mandalas. Until next time, rock on.